I'm Lisa Evers, and this is Street Soldiers. As more and more women pursue careers in professional sports, the issues of equal pay and respect become urgent goals. Now it's all about leveling the playing field across the board. Joining me is Hannah O'Flynn. She's a producer and editor with the NBA and WNBA, a media personality, and a former Division I athlete. Hannah, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Thank you. Excited to have you. It's awesome. Thank you so much. Also joining us is Rachel Breton. She's a former professional soccer player, a coach and trainer, and also a sports psychology mentor. Rachel, great to have you with us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Prim Siripapat. She's a host on The Athletic. She's a former ESPN anchor, and she's a former Duke and professional tennis player. Prim, great to have you with us.
Nailed the last name. Good job. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you all for being with us. So much is happening with women's sports, and so much has been going on for so long that I think just the general public didn't realize the struggles, the challenges. Rachel, when you look at the field right now, especially as we're in the middle of this highly publicized Women's World Cup, where are we with this?
That's a great question. I think right now, overall, the World Cup has been fantastic. I don't know if everyone's been watching it, but it's been really good. All countries have really represented themselves, and I think that's it's something that should be seen from a lot of viewers, because I don't know, professional soccer isn't where I think needs to be, along with youth sports as well. Seeing that the women's national team is doing so well, it's bringing a lot of talk towards the growth of women athletes, especially soccer players as well.
And one of the, Hannah, with the professional basketball players, with the women basketball players, there's been a lot of other issues just besides equal pay, because they're not saying we think we should be paid the same as the guys. We're not drawing in the same crowds yet. It's not at that same level. But what's the feeling among the WNBA?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to that. Also, going off of the World Cup idea, it's crazy that I think Rachel might have more to say on that, but Ada Hegerberg, that's like such a definition, I think, of the issues that female athletes are going through. She's arguably one of the best soccer players that, is in the game right now, and she opted out because she was protesting against the Norwegian national team for how they're treating everybody. But going off of sort of the WNBA, there's the argument that, there's a lot of tickets that aren't being sold compared to the NBA. But, on the other side of that, only approximately 25% of the revenue of the league is estimated to be going towards the players. So
there's a disparity there, and I want to get more into the money thing. But just overall, Prim, when you look around, you were on the pro tennis circuit there. Mm-hmm. When you see tennis has equal prize money,
yep,
right, for
yep,
women and for men.
Yep. I think when you're talking about tennis, I think it's extremely progressive, and it's kind of like the modern day environment when we're talking about equal pay, because it's one of the few sports where the men and women, they actually do get paid the same money. Maybe at not every single event or tournament, but when we're talking about the majors,
Grand Slam, the big ones.
Grand Slams, yeah. I mean, when somebody wins a U.S. Open, they get $3.8 million, male or female, doesn't matter. And so I think that's a really cool thing, and it should serve as the template for all the other sports about what the potentials are in terms of equal pay for men and women.
But Rachel, when we talk about tennis having the equal pay, that's an individual sport where you have soccer, you have basketball, which are the two biggest, I think, team sports that women are playing in professionally in the U.S. Does it make a difference when you're talking about a team? What other dynamics come into play?
I mean, when you're talking about a team, I think, for the league per se, we opted, and when I say we, I mean the players, we've opted to take a lower compensation to create to make it lucrative and make it sustainable, because the past couple of leagues, they've just diminished after 3 years. So we're trying to keep it, again, sustainable, and that means that a lot of players collectively might need to take a pay cut or pay hit. But I think with the women's national team arguing for them to get paid more and get paid equally, that is also bringing a lot of notice to the players that aren't on a national team, which is, it's going to take some time, but I think that's the biggest part about it.
Is the elephant in the room with this, the whole discussion about equity and respect for women in sports, the fact that there's still people out there that have a lot of negative stereotypes about female athletes?
Absolutely. I think especially in the WNBA, there's a lot of haters, and you see in the comments. And it's funny from all the perspectives of the players. They always say, the people who are hating on us aren't actual basketball players or hoopers. They aren't the people with the skills. The NBA players are super supportive. We were just talking about how just the other day, LeBron, Westbrook, CP3, they're all at the Aces Liberty game. They're super outward on social media. Kobe, LeBron, Kyrie Irving have all tweeted about it and speak on it, and they're super supportive. Giannis has compared himself to Candace Parker. There's endless examples of players who understand what it takes and the skills that these girls really, truly have. And I always say, if you're a hater of the WNBA, have you ever seen a game? Because it's
100%.
unbelievable.
That's so true.
I actually think that people that are super critical about female athletes, or particularly the WNBA, are typically people that probably didn't play sports or didn't even play at the higher level, because you'll never hear a male athlete, ripping on another female athlete, because when you've played at the higher level, you have such an appreciation for the game and the training and how hard it is. And so you have that respect for one another, athlete to athlete. It doesn't matter if you played in high school or in college or professional. Once anybody finds out that you were an athlete, it's immediate family and connection.
And Rachel, you and Prim, you talk about the pressures and what it takes to really play at that level. Rachel, give us an idea of what it's like to play at a pro level, because it's not like, we do a show and it goes out and, most of the people will like it, thankfully, but it's not, everything's not in real time with commentators commenting on everything real time, video on, close-ups of how you just kick the ball or whatever.
Yeah.
Tell us about the pressures.
It is a lot of pressure. You're a 1% of what everyone's trying to be. So it's making sure, even on social media, that you present yourself the right way, that you eat right, that you sleep right, that you're not, projecting anything, you're staying neutral, and that's just off the field. On the field, you have to come in every day, and a lot of things that that's struggling with the NWSL is having everybody on their off-fields happiness. There was kind of drama with a couple teams about, host families, or if they're just happy off the field, and that turns on to being happy on the field, which means that you can't be productive during practice, you can't be productive during games, and then you get kind of worried that, are we bringing in the fans? That's kind of our problem too, because it is, we have to make sure that we're bringing those fans in, and we have to make sure that we're performing, because it's very easy for someone to say, well, it's just women's soccer, or it's just, it's a women's sport, because we are on the lower end, especially with the MLS growing. It's this 26th or 27th year. We are on our 7th year. We have made big strides, but, it could be taken down at any moment. So it's a lot of pressure, to prepare for it, to stay healthy. It is tough.
There's a lot more that goes into it than the people who are watching from their couch or from the stands
100%.
even totally understand. We're gonna talk about that. This is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be right back.
They constantly outperform their male counterparts.
By every
They're
stat.
ranked number one by FIFA over 10 out of the last 11 years. They need to get paid. It's as simple as that.
The stereotypes, the pressures, let's really talk about that, because there's things that you hear just even as a girl growing up, like, oh, you don't want to be like those girls, you're not going to get a boyfriend. I mean, that's still very much a big thing, or they're going to think a certain kind of way of you, or your body's going to change, and you're not going to have, especially now with all these, the super hyper curvy stars we see in celebrities, we see in things like that. Talk about those. What have you heard about that?
I think it's definitely getting better, but I would definitely say as far as just the muscular physique and strong woman, I think it used to be much more of an issue as far as an athlete not being feminine, and it was seen as less attractive. I'm definitely seeing more and more just through social media and everything else, just it's becoming a lot more accepting. And yeah, I just think that athletes, like female athletes, are seeing a lot more like respect and praise in that way of like being more strong and bold.
And our culture overall, I mean, so much more of an emphasis on fitness. It's okay for women to have
Totally, yeah,
muscles.
for
It's
sure.
okay to have definition and,
Yeah.
and that type of thing. Prem, what about in the tennis world? Because Serena Williams has had a lot of different battles and been criticized for her look and for her muscular physique.
I want those arms. I'm telling you that.
What,
Yeah,
what
I mean-
about that and the power
Yeah.
that she plays with?
Yeah, it's really interesting because when she bursted onto the scene, and as she started, the Williams sisters were only 12 or 13 years old. But as
Oh,
we all
wow.
know, and as we all know, we got to follow them through their careers, but also their lives. And with that, of course, we all have been through adolescence, and you grow into your bodies. And she really challenged the idea of what a woman or even a female tennis player should be. She was tall, she was strong, she was muscular.
African American in a predominantly white sport.
Exactly. Yep, in a very wealthy, predominantly white sport, where the fan base is typically white collar. And so there was a period, I would say, for a good 10 years. I mean, that's a good chunk of time, because she's only 38 right now and 37. But for a good chunk of 10 years, people weren't necessarily fans of the Williams sisters for a number of reasons. But I think as time has gone on, Hannah, as you mentioned, I think with the movement of social media, female athletes have a much larger voice, and they can fight for what they want to fight for. So there's less of the stereotypes about women having to be feminine or submissive or more patient or tall and skinny, petite, whatever it is. Like, I think there's a real celebration of, like, if you're a female athlete or if you're just a female in general, you can be voluptuous, you can be muscular, strong is the new sexy. And so I don't know, I just think the times are changing.
I would
Right.
jump on that because I think, like, I'm a huge Serena fan.
Yeah.
And she's just been awesome. I think she's, like, I think the biggest thing that athletes have done and what women should do and are doing is that they're just representing themselves and, like, this is me. And she's always been like, this is who I am. This is who I am on the tennis court. This is what I'm about. And then you kind of see her MO, and that kind of, brings confidence to women to do that,
And then also
Sure,
a cultural shift too, in terms of more sports, more women being encouraged to get into sports. Where before it used to be like, okay, the guys in the family, the boys, well, they go into this. They have soccer, basketball, baseball, lacrosse. They have all these different sports, and then there would just be a couple for the girls.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was lucky, and it sounds like you guys were lucky too, where my upbringing as Asian, my parents are from Thailand, so typically, they adhere to the typical stereotype of Asians where it's like, oh, you play piano and you're really good at math and you're a good student. And yeah, I did get a 4.0 and I did play piano and we both played saxophone.
And guess what? And you got a killer
But you know
backhand,
what?
right?
I was an athlete too,
Yeah.
But my parents were super liberal in that sense where it was between
As long as you kept your
dance
grades
and
up, you
tennis.
could.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed tennis, and they helped foster opportunities for me to pursue that. And it sounds like your parents did the same thing too.
Same for me.
Yeah.
3.89, okay? 3.89. Dean Smith, though, okay? Dean Smith.
All right,
Double
Rachel.
major, okay?
All
but
right.
It was
Yeah,
4.0.
same.
No one
Yeah,
needs to know.
And working 4 different part-time jobs to pay for school.
No,
It's
but
all
yeah,
good.
my parents supported me, and I loved soccer. That was like my dad played soccer, and that was my passion. And they made both things just acceptable. Where it's like, hey, like it wasn't a challenge to do it. It was just like, mommy and daddy did it. Can you do that too? You have these players at the pinnacle moment of their lives, and they're there, and they're still not reaching it. So it's like,
And they got to
well,
worry
then
about
why
the
do I
credit card
even-
bill or something like that. at the
Yeah,
end of the
well,
month.
it becomes back to when you're 13 and you're like, well, why do I even do this? Like, where's my aspiration?
Do we see the male basketball players, the sneaker endorsements, the clothing endorsements, all these types of things? Do you see that with female basketball players?
I think for the very, very big names, yes. So for like Diana Taurasi or, people like that, you see that. But for the players that are, new to the game or aren't as well known, it's a struggle because you don't have those endorsements, and you like we said, you have to go find another job and not focus on your craft.
Which is which people don't even believe. What people don't even believe.
Which is huge, like what she's saying about the quote unquote known namers or not higher up represented athletes. Like that needs to grow a lot because especially with women's soccer, when those women's soccer players like on the national team, when they go for the World Cup, you're left with the league with players that are not on the national team. Those names need to get broadcasted, and they should get, some sponsorships as
And they
well.
should get
because-
out there.
Yeah, their names need to get out there.
But what,
for sure.
Prim, when you look at the whole
Yeah.
sponsorship scene and just that whole area, do the sponsorships, when they get a big endorsement, that kind of makes the athlete more famous, or the athlete has to be super famous before they get the endorsement?
No, I think the endorsements come after the fact. So I think we need to work backwards. I think a lot of it has to do with, number one, creating a successful business model that helps support the female athletes. So we're talking about the NBA. Their business model could be better in the sense of, so the NBA players get 49 to 51% of their revenue, the league's revenue,
Which
and
is a lot from TV.
It's
and-
$27 billion.
Oh my God.
So they get
It's
41 to
ridiculous,
51% of that revenue, whereas the women, they only make 25 million roughly in revenue, but they only get 25% of it.
Right.
Okay, so the thing is if they want to help grow this league, and the WNBA is an extension of the NBA.
Right.
It's a subsidiary. So I would say, hey, let's invest in the WNBA, which means let's tell people stories about Brianna Stewart and Brittany Griner and Maya Moore, and that's how they're going to grow viewership and ratings, because if fans don't know who these players are, they're not going to fall in love with them. They're not even giving them a chance to fall in love with them. And then after that, then everything will take place. And that's the same thing with soccer. It's, if you want to, well, actually, no, they already have a ton of ratings. I don't know what I'm talking about. They
Right.
bring $20 million more than the men's team.
Right.
And
It's
if we're
crazy.
talking about, I think for the WNBA, in my opinion, it's about the business model. They need to tweak the business model. In terms of women's soccer,
What about
it's
that?
straight up disparity. Like they constantly outperform their male
Constantly,
counterparts.
by every
They're
stat.
ranked number one
Yeah.
by FIFA over 10 out of the last 11 years. Like they need to get paid.
Yeah.
It's as
No.
simple
It's
as
that-
that.
and that's why they have the
It is
lawsuit,
true,
the
and
gender
that's why they have the
discrimination
lawsuit. And
lawsuit.
again, it goes back to what I was saying before about, what are we teaching our youth? What are we teaching people? Because then there's no striving for. Because here you have these players at the pinnacle moment of their lives, and they're there, and they're still not reaching it. So it's like,
And they got to
well,
worry
then
about
why
the
do I
credit card
even-
bill or something like that. at the
Yeah,
end of the
why
month.
it becomes back to when you're 13 and you're like, well, why do I even do this? Like, where's my aspiration?
I want to thank you all for being with us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Hannah O'Flynn, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rachel Breton, great to have you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Prim Sripapat, thank you so much.
Awesome
We
conversation.
really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.